Hey there. Tonight we wander the streets of Paris just as the sun dips low, the city yawning and stretching into evening. You trudge along uneven cobblestones, your boots echoing softly against centuries-old stones, feeling each worn edge beneath your feet. The Seine shimmers faintly in the twilight, catching the last blush of orange as if the river itself were reluctant to let the day end. Somewhere a bell tolls, irregular and soft, echoing off walls that have witnessed more history than you can imagine. You probably won't survive a day in this city without tripping over a stray lantern, a slack rope, or the occasional curious child darting across your path. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Post your location and local time below. Paris is just beginning its nightly transformation. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air smells faintly of river mist, mingled with wood smoke, curling lazily around your shoulders. You inhale deeply, letting the chill settle into your lungs. The cobbled streets are uneven, narrow, and slightly slick from the last rain, forcing you to step carefully. Each stone carries a memory, the quiet impression of horse hooves, cartwheels, and countless feet from centuries past. The city feels alive, breathing around you, almost aware of your presence. Somewhere, a shutter creaks in the evening breeze, a wooden note in the hushed symphony of twilight. A distant dog barks, then falls silent, as though it knows to respect the rhythm of dusk. Ahead, a faint flicker of flame catches your eye. The first lamplighters have begun their ritual. You notice them huddled in small groups, stretching stiff limbs from the day's work, their poles taller than themselves glinting faintly in the dying light. They whisper softly, laughing under their breaths, voices blending with the distant echo of closing shops and the faint slap of wooden shutters. There is a grace in their movements, a rhythm you almost miss if you're not paying attention. Each carries a small satchel containing oil, wicks, and cloths, tools simple in design yet indispensable. You watch them, and for a moment, you feel like an intruder peeking into a private, almost magical world. The first lamp flares to life, a small but powerful bloom of golden light, casting long shadows that twist along the walls. Smoke curls from nearby chimneys, carrying the faint scent of bread baking, roasting almonds, and the earthy tang of the river. You breathe it all in, letting the city wrap around you like a soft cloak. The glow reflects on the wet cobblestones, and you notice that even the shadows have warmth tonight, each corner kissed by light. There is a sense of order, though it feels effortless. The lamplighters' steps are measured, their hands confident, their eyes scanning for imperfections, for lamps that might sputter or falter. You follow them as they move along the quays. Lanterns flare one by one, illuminating bridges and narrow alleyways, bathing the Seine in tiny constellations of flame. Children pause in doorways, their eyes wide with curiosity. A cat slinks across the stone, tail high, pausing to sniff at the base of a newly lit lamp before disappearing into a shadow. The city is quieter than it was an hour ago, yet it is far from silent. You hear the faint rustle of shutters, the soft creak of cartwheels rolling over uneven stones, and the whisper of wind through ancient eaves. Each sound layers with the others to create a slow, deliberate pulse, the heartbeat of Paris transitioning from day into night. One lamplighter pauses, crouching to check the wick of a lamp that sputters under a faint gust of wind. He taps it gently with his long pole, a practiced flick that sends sparks curling upward before the flame steadies. You notice the care with which he handles each lamp, the small gestures that speak of years of repetition and knowledge passed down through generations. Historians still argue whether lamplighters were primarily a practical safety measure or a symbol of civic pride. Standing here, following their rhythm, it feels like both. Each lamp is a tiny triumph against darkness, a promise that the city remains watchful, alive, and connected. You continue to trail behind, noticing small details that you might otherwise overlook. The faint aroma of garlic drifts from a nearby tavern, mixing with the sweet tang of pastries cooling on a windowsill. A bell above a doorway jingles softly as someone returns home, their footsteps muted against wet stones. You see the curve of a bridge reflecting lantern light like molten gold, and the distant silhouette of Notre Dame rises against the indigo sky, its spires faintly glowing in the last remnants of sunlight. Every sense is engaged. Every inhale and exhale feels attuned to the city's slow exhalation. A group of apprentices appears at the corner, carrying extra oil for the lamplighters. They exchange brief nods and quiet instructions, their eyes scanning for lamps still unlit or flickering weakly. You notice a boy slip a small piece of bread into his mouth while keeping pace, his concentration absolute, almost reverent. It occurs to you that Lamplighters witness Paris as few others do. Every alley, every door, every hidden corner. They are the city's unseen audience, observing not just the night, but life itself. With a quiet attentiveness that borders on ritual, lanterns continue to flare along the quays, one after another, creating a lattice of soft light that guides both wanderers and those returning home. The Seine glows faintly, reflecting the lamplights like a river of liquid gold. You realize that the city's rhythm is cumulative. Each light adds to the last, and the effect is hypnotic. Your steps slow as you absorb the scene, the lamplighters' measured motions, the faint scent of wood smoke mingling with the river, the distant clatter of carts, and the occasional hum of a passing passerby. A lamplighter pauses near a narrow alley, crouching to adjust the wick of a lantern that wavers in the evening breeze. Sparks rise like tiny fireflies, briefly illuminating the rough stone walls. He murmurs something to himself, perhaps a reminder, perhaps an observation, and then moves on. You watch, enchanted, noting how every motion is deliberate, precise, and almost musical in its repetition. Even the occasional hiccup, a sputtering flame or a loose rope, feels like part of a carefully orchestrated performance. As you follow them, the lamplighters' laughter reaches you, soft and quiet, echoing against the walls. They joke about forgotten lamps, road cats, and the apprentice who always trips over the same cobblestone. You smile, realizing that humor is part of their ritual, a way to keep the night light and human amid their responsibilities. This is Paris at its most intimate, not the grand boulevards or crowded markets, but quiet streets, flickering lamps, and those who care enough to keep the city illuminated. By now, the sun has disappeared entirely. The lamplighters' poles move rhythmically, the tips catching flame from one lamp to the next, a chain reaction of light. Shadows curl and stretch along the streets, and every corner seems alive with anticipation. You probably won't think of lamps the same way again. Each is not merely a source of light, but a tiny guardian, a silent sentinel over the city's history, its people, and its secrets. You pause on a bridge to watch the scene unfold. Lanterns cast long, wavering reflections across the water, merging with the faint shimmer of the Seine itself. The lamplighters continue their rounds, each step deliberate, each flame a small act of care and attention. Somewhere a stray cat weaves between their feet, tail high, and a distant bell tolls the hour. You inhale deeply, letting the scents of smoke, river, and bread settle in your chest, and for a moment, you feel suspended in time, a witness to a centuries-old ritual that most of Paris will never notice. The lamplighters begin to disperse into smaller alleys, poles raised and flames dancing, a quiet network of light slowly spreading across the city. You notice the subtle changes in temperature, the way shadows grow longer, and how distant voices seem softened by the evening air. Every detail, every flicker, every whisper contributes to a meditative tapestry, one that reminds you why some of history's most boring jobs were anything but. The city exhales fully now. Lanterns burn steady, casting warmth on shutters, doorways, and narrow streets. You trail behind, savoring the rhythm, the scent, and the subtle thrill of moving among guardians of the night. Each step feels deliberate, measured, mindful. You might stumble or catch your breath, but the city itself seems to cradle you, keeping time with your heart as you walk among the lamplighters, watching the twilight fold into night. As the first lamps flicker to life along the Seine, you find yourself drawn deeper into the lamplighters' world. You trudge along the narrow, damp streets, the air now a mixture of river mist, faint smoke, and the earthy scent of stone warmed by the day. Above, the rooftops catch the last traces of sunlight fading behind distant towers, and you notice small birds flitting to hidden ledges, settling for the night. You probably won't realize it yet, but you're about to witness a ritual that balances precision, patience, and a touch of mischief, a nocturnal symphony that Paris only reveals to those who follow its flickering lights. The lamplighters begin to gather in the small square near Rue Saint-Honoré. You can hear the subtle creak of their boots on the uneven cobbles, the soft rustle of satchels containing oil and wicks. They exchange greetings with quiet nods and half smiles, sharing the kind of camaraderie built from years of leaning over rooftops, balancing poles, and carrying fire above the city. One older man bends to check a lamp's wick while joking with a younger apprentice about a missing oil flask that supposedly wandered into a neighbor's windowsill. You chuckle softly, realizing that humor, like their lanterns, illuminates even the darkest corners of their work. The poles they carry are long, almost impossibly so, and topped with hooks, small lanterns or delicate wicks. Each lamplighter inspects their pole with care, testing the weight, adjusting the angle, ensuring it will respond like an extension of their own arm. You notice the subtle variations. One pole bears notches from decades of use. Another glimmers faintly in the lantern light, polished smooth from constant handling. There is an unspoken reverence for these tools, as if each has a memory of fires kindled, rooftops crossed, and secrets glimpsed from above. Nearby, apprentices murmur quietly among themselves, comparing poles, joking about the best techniques for reaching stubborn lanterns, and mimicking the older lamplighters' careful gestures. You watch as one young boy practices lighting a small oil wick, his hands trembling slightly, his concentration absolute. Historians still argue whether apprentices were primarily trained to maintain efficiency or to master the art of spectacle, how to make the city's transition from day to night appear effortless, almost magical. Standing here, you understand it's both, safety and beauty entwined in each movement. The lamplighters organize themselves into small groups, mapping out their routes silently. They point to unlit lamps, exchange gestures, and check the status of oil flasks. One man calls softly to another across the square, using a tap on the cobblestones, a subtle signal that has carried for generations. You strain your ears and realize this is a language of its own, a combination of visual cues, sound, and intuition. The city hums around them, indifferent to the choreography, yet perfectly aligned with it. You follow a pair as they begin their route, stepping carefully behind them. They move with deliberate grace, poles extended, scanning rooftops and lanterns alike. A lamp flares, and the flame dances across the stone walls, throwing golden reflections onto the river below. You inhale the cool air, now tinged with a hint of smoke, and the faint aroma of roasted chestnuts from a nearby stall closing for the night. Each lamp ignited feels like a heartbeat, a reassurance that the city remains awake, connected, and safe. A lamplighter pauses, crouching slightly to test a wick that sputters in the evening breeze. Sparks curl upward like fireflies before the flame steadies. He murmurs something under his breath, half a caution, half a prayer, before moving on. The apprentices observe silently, absorbing every motion, every careful adjustment. You realize that the city's transformation isn't just about light. It's about rhythm, attentiveness, and a quiet respect for the spaces they traverse. Each gesture is deliberate, measured, almost meditative, as if the city itself requires this reverence. Across the square, another group signals each other with faint taps and nudges, coordinating routes with precision. You notice the subtle humor threaded throughout, a whispered jest about a cat that always seems to chase the lamplighters' poles, a comment about a mischievous child who once tried to borrow a lantern for a prank. Their laughter is quiet, contained, yet it carries a warmth that contrasts with the cool evening air. These moments of levity are woven seamlessly into their work, softening the monotony of repetition and the tension of heights and open flames. The lamplighters continue to disperse, moving into alleys, up narrow stairways, and along the edges of rooftops. You follow at a safe distance, observing how their movements create a network of light across the city. Each lamp they touch ignites in a gentle flare, a visual rhythm that spreads gradually, reassuringly, throughout the streets. You notice the interplay of light and shadow, the way the soft glow dances across weathered stone and ironwork, and the faint reflections that shimmer on the river's surface. The city is being painted, one small flame at a time. A sudden gust of wind makes one lamp flicker, and a lamplighter reaches up instinctively, adjusting the wick with a precise flick of his pole. Sparks rise, curling into the darkening sky before the flame steadies once more. You watch, mesmerized, as this small act of care keeps the city from darkness. Somewhere behind you, a cat weaves between your legs, tail flicking like a question mark, observing the scene with equal curiosity. As the last traces of sunlight fade, the lamplighters' movements become the dominant rhythm in the square. Their poles extend like arms of light, wicks flaring and steadying in unison. Children peek from windows, enchanted, while shopkeepers glance out one final time before closing their doors. The city exhales fully into night, and you feel a quiet satisfaction in watching the transformation unfold. The lamplighters pause briefly near a fountain, oil flasks refilled, wicks trimmed, poles aligned. One older man leans on his pole, observing the apprentices around him, giving soft instructions and encouragement. He comments quietly about the importance of patience, precision, and respect for the lamp, for the flame, and for the city itself. You realize this is a lesson in rhythm, in care, and in attention to small details that often go unnoticed, but shape the experience of everyone who walks these streets. Lanterns flare across distant rooftops, casting shadows that stretch like fingers across alleyways. The lamplighters' laughter continues, low and intermittent, mingling with the soft murmur of the Seine, the distant toll of bells, and the occasional clip-clop of hooves on stone. The city feels alive in a way that daylight rarely captures. It breathes quietly, steadily, and you sense that every action, no matter how small, is part of a larger choreography that has persisted for centuries. You notice the faint scent of smoke, mingled now with roasted chestnuts and the lingering aroma of bread from bakeries closing their shutters. The lamplighters' movements are fluid, almost musical, each gesture a note in the symphony of night. You feel the subtle thrill of participating, even as an observer, in a ritual that balances risk, skill, and quiet artistry. Each lamp kindled is a tiny triumph, a reassurance against the creeping darkness, and a reflection of the city's heartbeat. Historians still debate whether lamplighters were mostly functional guardians of safety or symbolic keepers of Parisian pride. But for you, trailing behind their rhythm, the distinction doesn't matter. Each movement, each spark, each deliberate pause conveys both. You probably won't think of street lamps the same way again. They are living, breathing instruments, extensions of human care and attention, a soft reminder that even the simplest light can shape a city's soul. You linger near the final lamps of this first section of the city's transformation. Their glow illuminates narrow alleys, rooftops, and stone facades, casting reflections on the Seine that shimmer like molten gold. The lamplighters move with quiet purpose, unseen by most yet shaping the night for all. You inhale the mingling scents, listen to the soft rhythms, and feel the city's pulse align with your own. For now, you let the scene settle in your mind. The glow of lanterns, the gentle hum of the river, the faint laughter of lamplighters, and the subtle scent of smoke and bread drifting through the evening air. Paris is alive, and you are part of its nocturnal awakening, moving quietly among those who guard light in darkness. One measured step, one gentle flick, one small flame at a time. The next evening begins the same way, but no two evenings ever feel quite identical. You hear the faint clang of a distant bell, and the first threads of dusk stretch across the rooftops of Paris. The lamplighter begins his walk once again, his pole gleaming faintly from use, his steps slow but certain. The cobblestones underfoot are still slick from an earlier drizzle, reflecting pale streaks of the sky. The air smells faintly of coal smoke and damp wool, the scent of a city preparing to settle into night. He starts at his usual corner, where the first lamp leans slightly from its bracket, its glass fogged by years of breath and dust. He wipes it carefully with a rag tucked into his belt. The cloth is already dark with soot, but he rubs until the pane is clear enough for light to shine through like honey. He knows that clean glass is half the work. A dirty lamp is like a muffled voice. Then, with the easy rhythm of practice, he opens the small brass door, leans in, and sets the flame. The light catches, flickers, steadies. He waits a moment, watching it breathe. His movements are economical. No wasted gestures, no hurry. The lamplighter's task is not simply to light, it is to tend. He checks the wick, adjusts the valve, ensures the little reservoir beneath the glass is half full. Each action takes only seconds, yet each one carries the weight of habit formed through years of repetition. The motions feel almost devotional, as though the lamps are small shrines, and he their solitary priest. Further down the street, two other lamplighters are already at work, their silhouettes moving in rhythm. From a distance, they resemble a slow procession of monks bearing torches through the city. Each pole touches the next lamp, each spark flares to life, and the chain of light extends deeper into the maze of streets. Children stop to watch them sometimes. A baker's apprentice leans against a doorway, his hands still dusted with flour, and calls out something teasing but good-natured. The lamplighter grins without breaking stride. He's heard every joke about the man who feeds the lamps, the servant of fire, the one who brings the sun late, but secretly, he enjoys them. The jokes mean the people notice him. And though he rarely speaks much, there's pride in that recognition. A woman in a shawl steps out to shake crumbs from a tablecloth. She nods to him softly, and he tips his cap. The light he leaves behind will illuminate her doorway long after he's gone. As he moves along the street, the lamps behind him begin to hum faintly, the low, steady whisper of gas pushing through pipes. It's a sound easy to miss, but once you hear it, you can never unhear it. It fills the edges of the night, a quiet reminder of the hidden veins that feed the city's glow. Some nights are easier than others. When the air is dry and the wind is still, the flames catch quickly. But there are nights when rain spits sideways, when the wind claws at his cloak and threatens to snuff out the newborn light. On those evenings, he works slower, shielding each flame with his hand, sometimes lighting the same lamp twice or 3 times before it holds. His fingertips sting from heat and soot, yet he never curses it, because every lamplighter knows the city depends on consistency. He checks his route mentally as he goes, every corner, every alley, every bridge. The city has assigned him 97 lamps. He knows them all by position, by quirk, even by scent. The one near Rue du Temple always smells faintly of onions from the nearby soup kitchen. The one by the Seine carries the aroma of wet iron and moss. The one outside the tailor's flickers in a peculiar rhythm, like a nervous heartbeat, though he's replaced the wick a dozen times. And then there's his favourite, the lamp that overlooks the little square near St. Paul. It sits higher than most, its light reaching farther, spilling across a stone bench where old men sometimes play cards after sunset. He always saves it for last, not out of laziness, but out of quiet affection. Lighting it feels like signing his name at the end of the evening's work. Tonight, though, something interrupts his rhythm. A boy, perhaps 10 years old, runs up beside him, out of breath. His jacket is too big, his shoes too thin. "Monsieur," the boy says, "may I help?" The lamplighter pauses. This happens now and then. The curiosity of youth, the lure of flame. He studies the boy for a moment, then nods toward the next lamp. "You can hold the pole," he says. The boy's eyes widen, reflecting the lamplight like polished coins. They walk together to the next post. The lamplighter steadies the base of the pole, then lets the boy lift the end upward. The metal hook finds the latch. The tiny flame kisses the wick, and the glass comes alive with gold. The boy laughs, a bright surprise sound that echoes down the street. "Every evening?" he asks. "Every evening," the lamplighter replies. "Even in the rain?" "Especially in the rain." The boy grins and runs off before he can ask more. The lamplighter watches him vanish into the glow. For a moment, he feels something stir, a memory of his own first night on the job, long ago. The nervous excitement, the pride of tending something as fragile as fire. Back then, he was the one asking questions, shadowing an older man who'd spoken little, but taught everything through silence and example. He remembers how that first flame had looked, impossibly small, yet fierce. He moves on, the memory folded neatly away. The city deepens into its nocturnal rhythm. Horses clop, a carriage door slams, laughter filters from a cafe. Somewhere, a violin starts to play a waltz. The notes drift through the air, bending with the wind, mingling with the hiss of gas and the steady tap of his boots. By the time he reaches the square, most of the lamps behind him are burning evenly. He glances once or twice over his shoulder to make sure. The light paints long golden reflections across puddles. From an upper window, a woman waters her geraniums, the droplets catching the glow like falling stars. He lights the last lamp, his favorite one, and stands still for a while. The square is empty tonight, but the benches still glisten faintly from earlier rain. The air is cool, clean, almost perfumed with damp stone and wood smoke. Above him, the faint shimmer of stars barely competes with the man-made constellations below. This, he thinks, is what he'll miss when the electric age arrives, the quiet immediacy of fire. The feeling that each lamp is alive because he made it so. He touches the side of the post, more out of habit than purpose, and starts his walk back. Along the way, he passes a colleague heading in the opposite direction. They nod to each other, exchanging no words. Among lamplighters, words are unnecessary. Respect lives in the small gestures, a nod, a glance, a shared rhythm of work. The rest of the city hardly notices them. Lovers pause under the lights without wondering who lit them. Policemen patrol by their glow without thinking of the hands that trimmed the wicks. Artists sketch, writers linger, dreamers dream, all by lamplight, all unaware of the quiet choreography that makes their evenings possible. But the lamplighter does not need thanks. His satisfaction lies in the transformation itself, in watching dark turn to gold, in knowing that he gave order to the night. He reaches his small shed near the river, where spare wicks and glass panes are stored. He hangs his pole on the wall, wipes his hands with an oily rag, and sits for a moment before the faint glow of his own lantern. Around him the city hums, distant laughter, the clink of glasses, the rustle of the Seine's current. He eats a piece of bread from his pocket, breaks it in half, and tosses the rest to a stray cat that lingers near the door. The cat purrs, curling beside his boot. Outside, Paris has fully surrendered to the night. The lamps burn steadily, a constellation of human effort across stone and water. And though no one can see him now, the lamplighter feels a quiet contentment, the kind that only comes from finishing a ritual that connects him, invisibly, to every soul who walks beneath his light. He closes his eyes, listening to the faint hum of flames in the distance. Tomorrow, he will rise again, polish the soot from the glass, and start anew, the eternal custodian of twilight. Because to be a lamplighter is to repeat the same small miracle every evening before sunset, until repetition itself becomes devotion, and somewhere between dusk and dark, between duty and dream, the city learns to breathe again. Tonight, the wind comes early. It rolls through the narrow lanes of Paris like a restless spirit, teasing at curtains, swirling dust from the gutters, snapping at the corners of cloaks. The lamplighter feels it tugging before the sun has even dipped below the rooftops. The air smells sharper than usual, iron, rain, and that faint metallic bite that always announces a coming storm. He knows it will be a difficult night. He begins a little sooner than usual, stepping out from his modest room behind the cooper's shop. His hands already smell faintly of oil and smoke, though he has not yet touched the lamps. He adjusts the strap of the long pole across his shoulder and checks the small brass lighter at his belt. The flame must be coaxed carefully on windy nights. As he walks, the city feels different. The colours have flattened under the thick clouds, turning the stone facades into shades of slate and pewter. The Seine below seems darker, almost viscous, its surface shuddering with every gust. Laundry lines snap like whips between buildings. Even the pigeons, usually indifferent to human routines, have taken shelter along the church ledges. And yet, this is when the lamplighter feels most alive. There is something almost thrilling about lighting lamps in difficult weather. The challenge awakens an old stubborn pride. Each flicker that survives the wind feels like a small defiance, a quiet victory against chaos. He reaches the first lamp at the corner of Rue des Bars, where two alleys meet in a sharp V. The lamp there leans slightly, its bracket rusted from years of damp air off the river. He shields the lighter with his hand, sparks once, twice, and the flame leaps into being. The wind immediately tries to snatch it away, but he knows the trick. A small tilt of the wrist, a pause for the gust to pass, and then the quick, decisive touch of fire to wick. The glass trembles. The flame catches. A faint glow blooms behind the pane. He steps back and waits for a moment, watching to see if it will hold. The wind howls around the corner, bending the flame until it kisses the glass, but it steadies. One light down, 96 to go. Further along the street, shutters slam. A woman calls her children inside. The scent of rain swells in the air, mixed with the faint perfume of wet lilacs. The lamplighter's cloak flutters like a sail behind him as he moves from post to post, his boots echoing against the stones. At the third lamp, an old man watches from a doorway. "You'll have your work cut out for you tonight," he calls. The lamplighter smiles without slowing. The wind can try, but it won't win. The man chuckles. "Spoken like a soldier." "Not a soldier," the lamplighter replies softly. "Just stubborn." He moves on. By the fifth lamp, the first drops of rain begin to fall. Fat, cold, deliberate. They splatter on his hat, hiss against the flame in his hand. The smell of wet metal fills the air. He wipes the lighter with his sleeve, sparks it again, and presses forward. Each lamp becomes a small act of resistance. He lights one, turns to check the next, and catches sight of the glow behind him, a line of trembling suns leading back through the storm. The sight fills him with a strange warmth. The lamps look fragile, yes, but together they are strong. Together they carve a path through darkness and weather alike. When he reaches the small square by the bakery, the scent of bread cuts through the rain, warm, yeasty, alive. The baker's wife leans out, waving a loaf wrapped in cloth. "You'll catch your death out there," she shouts. "I'll catch it later," he answers, taking the bread with a nod of thanks. The loaf is still hot. He tucks it under his arm for warmth. The rain grows heavier. It drums against rooftops, splashes into puddles, and hums against the metal rims of the lamps. The lamplighter's hands grow slick with oil and rainwater. Once or twice a flame refuses to hold. He curses under his breath, not at the lamp, but at the invisible fingers of wind that toy with his work. Still, he persists. He knows every trick by now. How to angle the pole so that the brass door blocks the wind for half a second. How to use the curve of his body as a shield. How to recognize by smell when the wick has called properly. Hours seem to stretch, bending around the rhythm of his task. Each light becomes a heartbeat. Each street, a slow inhale and exhale of gold. He moves through the storm as if walking through time itself. Half ghost, half craftsman, the only soul awake, who knows the fragile machinery of night. Eventually, he reaches the bridge. The sand foams beneath him, churning with reflections, blurred smears of orange from the lamps already lit. The river's roar muffles every sound except the occasional creak of timbers and the soft click of his boots on the planks. The bridge lamps are always the hardest. The wind comes from all directions here, rebounding off the water, carrying mist that soaks his face. He grips the pole with both hands, raises it high, and strikes the first lamp. The flame hesitates, then catches, flaring wildly before shrinking into a steady glow. The second lamp follows after several failed attempts. He works methodically, patient as a clockmaker. By the time the last bridge lamp is burning, the storm has softened into drizzle. The air smells clean, rinsed of soot and smoke. The lamplighter leans against the railing for a moment, catching his breath. Beneath him, the river moves like dark silk, carrying faint reflections downstream. In that moment, he feels something like gratitude, not for the rain or the wind, but for the work itself, for the strange meditative peace that comes only after persistence, for the knowledge that no matter the weather, the lamps will burn again tomorrow. He looks back toward the city. The streets shimmer with light, each lamp a soft punctuation in the mist. The cathedral spire glows faintly in the distance. Paris has become a constellation mapped not in stars, but in glass and flame. A sound catches his attention. Laughter. Two children, perhaps the same boy from last night, dart across the square chasing each other, their shadows stretching long and thin. They shout and spin, their laughter echoing off the wet stones. He smiles. The lamps have given them this moment, this patch of safety, this brief brightness in the rain. He tips his hat and turns toward home. The storm has emptied the streets. Only the soft clatter of distant hooves remains. His cloak drips steadily, the bread now cool against his side. At the end of the street, a fellow lamplighter emerges from the gloom, lanterns swinging. They exchange a brief nod, wordless acknowledgement that both have fought the same battle tonight. Both have prevailed. By the time he reaches his quarters, the rain has stopped entirely. A faint breeze carries the smell of soaked earth and extinguished smoke. He hangs his pole by the door, removes his hat, and sets the bread on the table. For a long while he stands at the window, watching the faint shimmer of light along the street. Each lamp burns calmly now, as if the storm had never happened. He sits, eats his bread in silence, and lets his eyes drift half-closed. The faint hiss of distant gas lines fills the night. The bells of Saint-Sulpice begin to toll, their deep, resonant chime rolling through the Parisian evening like a yawn stretched across the rooftops. It's the hour before sunset, that golden sliver of time when the city seems to hold its breath, waiting for the lamplighters to emerge. You can already sense it coming. The air itself changes, thick with a kind of calm anticipation. The chatter of merchants fades, horses slow their pace, and a few children sit on the curbstones, watching the street corners like they're waiting for a show to begin. And in a way, they are. Because this is the hour of the flame, when the lamplighters of Paris step from the shadows, poles in hand, and begin their nightly ritual. You spot the first one at the far end of Rue du Bac, a lean figure moving at a steady, unhurried pace. His pole is taller than he is, a long staff with a small wick and a metal hook at the end. Slung over his shoulder is a canvas pouch that clinks softly with each step. Oil flasks, replacement glass panes, bits of wick, and something wrapped in cloth that might be his dinner. His gait is slow but practiced, like someone who's done the same dance for decades and knows every step by heart. He stops beneath a tall, iron lamp fixed to a post, the kind that leans slightly, as if tired from years of standing guard. With one practiced motion, the lamplighter dips the end of his pole into a small tin of oil, strikes a spark, and raises it to the lamp. A quiet whoomph of ignition, and the flame takes, a soft, steady glow blooming inside the glass case. And just like that, the night begins. He lingers a moment to adjust the wick, muttering under his breath like a man talking to a stubborn friend. "Ah, there you are. Behave tonight, eh?" The flame flickers obligingly, and he nods, satisfied. You can't help but smile. In an age before electricity, this was what reliability looked like. One man, one flame, and a city depending on both to keep the dark at bay. As he moves to the next lamp, a boy runs up behind him, the same boy you saw earlier near the baker's stall. Monsieur, did you ever set one on fire by accident?" the boy asks breathlessly. The lamplighter glances back, eyes twinkling beneath his brim. "Once," he says. "But it was my sleeve, not the lamp," the boy gasps. "Did it hurt?" "Only my pride," he replies with mock solemnity, and the boy bursts into laughter. There's something disarmingly gentle about the exchange. These men, lamplighters, guardians of twilight, are both mysterious and mundane. They carry no weapons, no badges, but somehow they hold dominion over the night. Without them, Paris would stumble in darkness, its narrow alleys transformed from poetic to perilous. As you follow him deeper into the quarter, the golden light from each lamp begins to connect one by one. First a flicker, then another, until the whole street seems strung together by tiny, floating suns. Windows open above you. A woman leans out, calling to her husband below. Someone laughs. The city, once harsh and busy, softens in this amber light. There's a rhythm to his work. Dip, spark, lift, light, adjust, move on. Over and over, each action deliberate, unhurried. He is both craftsman and performer, his work invisible until it isn't. You realize that this routine, so simple, so repetitive, has quietly shaped the soul of the city. Every evening, for centuries, someone like him walked these same streets, ensuring Paris glowed gently by nightfall. And it wasn't just about visibility. There was something almost sacred about it, a ritual passed down through generations of lamplighters. They even had their own code of pride. A true lamplighter, one 18th century account wrote, is known by the evenness of his flames and the cleanliness of his glass. You glance up, noticing how spotless the lamps are. Not a smear, not a soot mark. He must have polished them earlier in the afternoon, long before lighting began. You imagine him climbing ladders, wiping glass with careful circular motions, humming to himself as sunlight streamed through the empty casings. It's easy to overlook the hours that come before the first flame. People think we only work at night, he says suddenly, as if reading your thoughts. But I'm out here from dawn, cleaning, trimming, refilling. The flame may sleep, but I do not, he chuckles quietly. You nod, watching as he lights another lamp. The soft glow spills across the cobblestones, revealing the faint tracks of cartwheels and the curling edges of old posters on the wall. A gust of wind rushes through the street, and for a moment, all the flames tremble, hundreds of tiny, synchronized dancers bowing in unison. The lamplighter pauses, looks up and mutters, "Easy, mes petites, easy." Somehow the flames steady. You can't tell if it's luck or if they're listening. By now, a few other lamplighters have joined him in the distance. Their poles rise and fall in slow rhythm, lighting one street after another. To an observer, it might look like an invisible orchestra, each man lighting his section in harmony, guided by instinct rather than words. The glow spreads outward like ripples in water. A nearby tavern owner emerges, wiping his hands on his apron. "Evening, Jacques," he calls. "Evening," the lamplighter replies, not breaking stride. "Don't forget the corner near the bakery. The rats have taken to meeting there after dark." Jacques snorts. "Then I'll charge them rent for the light," the tavern owner laughs, shaking his head. "At least someone around here can still afford rent." It's small, ordinary banter, but it's what gives the city its heartbeat. These exchanges, repeated every evening, form the invisible web that binds Paris together. Everyone knows the lamplighters by name. They're as much part of the neighborhood as the baker or the priest. As you follow Jacques further, he stops beside a fountain, taking a short break. He removes his hat and wipes his brow. "There are 200 lamps in my section alone," he says, gesturing vaguely toward the maze of streets. "Some men get 800, some get 500. Depends on how ambitious your supervisor thinks you are." You glance at his hands, calloused, blackened with soot and oil, but steady as a surgeon's. "And how long does it take?" 4 hours to light," he says. 4 more to extinguish them come dawn. "The lamps sleep less than I do." You both laugh softly. The fountain burbles beside you, its water catching the faint reflection of the nearest lamp. For a moment, the flame wavers in the rippling pool, a tiny echo of the real one above. You think about how strange it is. The lamplighter's entire life built around something so fragile, so easily extinguished by wind, rain, or carelessness. Yet it's precisely that fragility that makes it beautiful. He stands again, stretching his back. "Come," he says, hoisting the pole onto his shoulder. "The sun's nearly gone. Time to wake the rest." You trail behind as he rounds a corner into a narrower street, where the lamps stand closer together. Here the flames cast tighter circles of light, overlapping like gentle halos. A woman sweeps her doorstep, glancing up to watch him work. She nods silently and he tips his hat. These tiny exchanges, wordless yet warm, are the true heartbeat of the city. You pass a baker closing his shutters, the smell of bread still thick in the air. A cat leaps onto a barrel, chasing the moving shadow of Jacques' pole. The city is full of little witnesses, creatures and people alike, who mark the passage of the lamplighter as the start of night proper. Somewhere behind you, laughter echoes. A pair of students reciting poetry to impress two girls, badly mispronouncing their verses. The lamplighter smiles without turning. "Ah, Molière weeps, but love forgives," he murmurs. You can't help but laugh. The sun finally dips below the rooftops, leaving only streaks of rose and violet. The lamps burn brighter now, their golden glow soft but resolute. For the first time, the balance tips, day gives way to night, and the lamplighters become the custodians of visibility. Jacques stops before one final lamp, taller, grander, mounted near a church gate. He lights it carefully, watching until the flame steadies. Then he lowers his pole and stands quietly for a moment. You can see his silhouette framed against the sky. One man, one light, holding the edge of darkness at bay. He sighs contentedly. "There," he says. "Paris is awake." You smile. "I thought you were putting it to sleep." He glances at you, eyes twinkling. "Ah, but Paris never really sleeps. We just dim the corners." And with that, he walks off down the lane, his figure slowly fading between the pools of golden light he's created. You stand there a while longer, listening to the hum of the city as it settles into night, the clatter of dishes, the low murmur of distant conversations, the soft hiss of a lamp adjusting itself in the breeze. Somewhere, another lamplighter strikes his pole against a flint. Whoomph! Another flame joins the constellation, and then another, until, at last, all of Paris glows, quietly, evenly, beautifully. You take one last look before turning toward the next street. Somewhere ahead, another story waits in the warm light of another lamp. The streets of Paris look different once the lamplighters have passed. The golden glow stretches across the cobblestones, each pool of light like an island in a soft black sea. You walk slowly between them, noticing how the shadows shift and breathe, alive in their own quiet rhythm. Somewhere behind you, a door creaks open, spilling laughter and the faint clatter of plates into the night. A tavern, maybe, its windows fogged from wine and conversation. The lamplighter's glow stops just short of its threshold, leaving the doorway bathed in a smoky half-light. You pause, watching how the brightness spills and fades, how darkness seems to wait politely just beyond it, as though unwilling to intrude. That's the strange thing about this new Paris, the one the lamplighters create every evening. The city doesn't become brighter exactly, it becomes arranged. The light is deliberate, sculpted, rationed like sugar or salt. Each lamp defines a little world, a step of safety, a glimpse of warmth, a promise that not everything disappears when the sun does. And yet, just beyond that golden radius, the shadows still hum. You notice a cat slink along the wall, its eyes briefly catching the lamp's flame. Then it vanishes again, swallowed by dark. Somewhere further on, a carriage rumbles past, its wheels glinting momentarily before fading into silence. Everything in the lamplit city exists halfway between being seen and being guessed at. You pass an elderly man sitting on a stool near the bridge, sharpening a knife with slow, deliberate strokes. His hands work automatically, though his eyes are fixed on the glowing lamps reflected in the Seine. "They say Paris is safer now," he mutters as you draw near. "But I think the thieves just learned to walk between the lights." You smile. "Maybe they're polite enough to wait until morning." He snorts. "Polite thieves. That would be a miracle." Still, there's truth in his words. Before the lamplighters, Paris at night was a dangerous labyrinth, a place of thieves, rats, and open sewage. But now, with each flame lit, a fragile order exists. Not peace exactly, but an agreement. Light for those who wish to see, shadow for those who prefer not to be found. The lamplighters walk the line between them. Further ahead, you spot two figures, lamplighters still on their rounds, their tall poles cutting silhouettes against the dusk. One hums softly, an old folk tune that wavers and echoes between the buildings. The sound mingles with the faint hiss of lamps and the occasional distant whistle from the riverboats. You linger nearby as Henry strikes his flint, coaxing the stubborn lamp to life. It flickers unevenly at first, sputtering like a drunk trying to find his words. "Steady, my friend," he murmurs, shielding it with his hand. The city depends on you, even if she doesn't know it. The lamp steadies, its flame blooming into a calm, amber eye. Henri steps back, nodding in approval. "See? You just have to be patient." His partner grins. "You sound like my wife." Henri raises an eyebrow. "Then perhaps she should be lighting lamps instead of me." You laugh softly, the sound swallowed by the quiet air. For a moment, the three of you stand in companionable silence, watching the line of flame stretch down the street. Each lamp seems to hold a tiny heartbeat, fragile, steady, human. It's strange, you think, how easily the lamplighters blend into their work. During the day, they're invisible, Ordinary men paid a few sous to climb ladders and trim wicks, but once dusk falls, they become something else entirely, keepers of order, caretakers of the city's dreams. You imagine what it must feel like to carry light from one corner of Paris to another, leaving small suns behind like breadcrumbs, to know that hundreds of windows will flicker with warmth because of your patient hands, to be invisible but indispensable. The first lamplighter finishes his round and glances toward the river. The wind's picking up, he says. If it turns, we'll be relighting half these again. Henri groans softly. Then I'll start charging the moon rent for the trouble. They move on, poles resting on their shoulders, their laughter fading into the next street. You follow the curve of the lane, past a row of shuttered shops. The lamps here burn lower, their wicks trimmed too tight, their light almost shy. Each one flickers like a thought half remembered. You stop beside a particularly old one. Its glass cracked, its iron bent. It's been here long enough to watch generations pass. You can almost imagine it whispering stories to itself of revolutions, lovers' quarrels, and rainstorms that turned the streets into mirrors. A faint rustling catches your ear. From the shadows beneath the lamp, a small group of children emerges, no older than 10. They're huddled together, one holding a candle stub, another clutching a crust of bread. Street urchins, the quiet audience of every lamplighter's performance. Bonsoir, one of them says softly, wary but curious. You kneel slightly, smiling. Out late, aren't you? The smallest one shrugs. We follow the light. Easier to see the coins people drop. You laugh gently. It's not unkind, just practical. Even the poorest Parisians know the rhythm of the lamps. When one lights up, shadows thin. When one goes out, the world retreats. These children move through the gaps like minnows between stones. One points to the lamp above you. This one flickers. He says it means ghosts. Who's he? You ask. The boy points to the cracked post. The lamp, you grin. Ah, and what do the ghosts want? To see where they died, maybe, he says with absolute seriousness. You glance up at the wavering flame, unsure whether to smile or shiver. In the golden glow, you can almost believe him. Maybe every lamp in Paris remembers something. A secret, a sin, a kiss. The children scamper off, their laughter bouncing off the walls. Their shadows dance briefly, then vanish into the dark. You stand there for a while, feeling the quiet pulse of the city. Above, the sky has deepened to indigo. The first stars appear, faint and distant, like tiny lamps hung in heaven by an unseen hand. And suddenly you realize the lamplighters below are mirrors of the constellations above. Both mark the same thing: human longing for light, for clarity, for the promise that darkness can be tamed, if only for a little while. A carriage passes again, wheels clattering softly. Its lanterns reflect off the damp stones, briefly creating the illusion that the street is made of gold. Then it's gone, leaving only the echo of hooves and the lingering smell of horse and oil. You walk onward, tracing the path of the newly lit lamps. They guide you like breadcrumbs through a maze of alleys, each turn revealing some new pocket of life. A baker cooling his loaves, a seamstress shutting her window, a pair of lovers whispering by the bridge, all framed, all softened by the gentle amber glow. And then, faintly, you hear singing, a voice, low and rough, drifting from the end of the street. You follow it until you see a man sitting on the steps of a chapel, another lamplighter, his pole laid beside him, his cap in his hands. He's singing to himself, the kind of melody that doesn't need an audience. The lyrics speak of rivers and home, of work done well, and light that never fades. When he notices you, he smiles without stopping the song. His eyes are bright with exhaustion and something like peace. When he finishes, you ask quietly, "Do you sing every night?" He nods. "Everyone. Helps the lamps stay awake." You laugh. "Do they listen?" He winks. "Some. The rest I sing to anyway." The answer is perfect. You sit with him for a while, neither of you speaking. The city hums gently, 1,000 lamps breathing in unison. The Seine glimmers faintly beyond the rooftops. A warm wind stirs the air, carrying the faint scent of bread, oil, and spring rain. When he finally stands, he slings his pole over his shoulder. "We'll be out again before dawn," he says, almost to himself. "To tuck them back to sleep," you nod, "the same way you woke them." "Exactly," he says with a grin. "A good flame deserves a good rest." He walks away, his figure fading into the pattern of light and shadow until he becomes part of it, another moving constellation among the earthly stars. You watch him disappear, and the thought settles over you like a blanket. Paris doesn't glow because of its lamps. It glows because of the hands that light them. You're deep into your route now. The sun is long gone, and the sky over Paris has faded into that bluish-black velvet that only the old cities seem to wear so elegantly. The last ribbons of pink have dissolved behind the chimney tops, and a damp coolness has descended over the streets. The stones under your boots have grown slick with dew, and the air smells faintly of coal smoke, bread crusts, and horse sweat. You pull your coat tighter and adjust the weight of the pole on your shoulder. Ahead, the next row of lamps waits, little glass globes perched on iron stalks like fireflies caught mid-flight. From a distance, you can see the faint reflection of earlier lamps glowing down the avenue, flickering rhythmically in the dark. You lit them. You're part of that pulse that makes Paris shimmer at night. You reach the first lamp of this stretch and take your time, because by now, it's less a chore and more a kind of dance. The match scratches to life, the sulfur smell curling upward. You hook the pole, lift the wick, coax it awake, and there, another soft bloom of light. The flame hums inside its little cage, and you can almost hear it whisper thank you. You move again, step, lift, light, lower, move. Each one takes just a few seconds, but together they form a slow, beautiful rhythm, the heartbeat of evening Paris. And as you walk, you begin to notice the sounds around you. They've changed. The shouting of merchants has stopped. Their voices have been replaced by the clink of dishes from taverns and the echo of boots on wet cobbles. Laughter spills out of a nearby wine shop, soft and round like honey. Someone's violin drifts through an open window, a few slow notes, tender and slightly off-key. You smile to yourself. At a corner, an old man calls out, "Don't forget that one, lad." He's sitting on his doorstep, puffing at a clay pipe. You nod and wave your pole in salute, pretending to almost miss the lamp just to amuse him. He chuckles, smoke curling from his nose, and mutters something about young blood keeping the night alive. People like him have seen Lamplighters their entire lives. They've watched generations of you, men who come and go, names forgotten, but whose flames linger night after night. In a way, you're part of their routine, as dependable as the toll of the church bells or the barking of dogs at dusk. And even if no one ever thanks you properly, there's comfort in that. You belong to the rhythm of the city. You pause halfway down the Rue Saint-Antoine to rest. Your shoulders ache slightly from carrying the long iron pole, and your fingers smell of oil and burnt wick. A soft drizzle begins to fall, not enough to extinguish the lamps, just enough to blur their halos into trembling orbs. The city looks dreamy like this. The reflections ripple in puddles, and the cobblestones shine as if polished by moonlight. You tilt your head back, let a few drops land on your face, and listen to the quiet hiss of rain on flame. For a moment, Paris seems to breathe with you. A cat darts across the street, tail flicking. Somewhere nearby, a woman hums as she hangs laundry under a covered eave. Yes, even at night, in this city that never fully sleeps, sometimes during these hours your mind wanders. You think about the thousands of lamps that line Paris, the main boulevards, the narrow alleys, the bridges spanning the Seine. You and your fellow lamplighters will light all of them before the night is old. It's a quiet army of men with poles and flames, moving like phantoms through the city. You imagine looking down from above, from the bell tower of Notre Dame perhaps, and seeing the lights come alive one by one, like a slow tide of gold washing over the rooftops. A few at first, then dozens, then hundreds. By the time the full night settles, Paris glows like a field of stars caught in a glass dome. It's no wonder travelers call it La Ville Lumière, the city of light. Not because of grand palaces or noble inventions, but because of you and the men like you, who climb and spark and coax the dark away every evening. There's a quiet pride in that thought. Not the kind you speak of, but the kind that sits warmly in your chest and hums softly. Halfway down the next lane, your foot slips on a patch of wet stone. The pole wobbles, and for a ridiculous heartbeat, you look like a juggler trying to balance a giant fishing rod. You catch yourself just in time and glance around. No one saw. You grin, muttering, graceful as ever, and continue on. A few paces later, a window creaks open above you. A woman's voice floats down, warm and teasing. "Careful, Monsieur Lamplighter. The night doesn't need you falling into it." You laugh softly, tipping your hat. "Just giving the cobblestones a scare, madame." She giggles, then closes the shutters. For a few seconds, you can still smell lavender from her room drifting into the cool air. It's these small exchanges that keep the work human. You're not just lighting glass boxes, you're connecting pieces of the city together. Every flame you coax to life becomes part of someone's world. The baker walking home sees your light. The lovers on the bridge kiss beneath it. The constable on patrol nods when he passes one of your glowing wards. You are, in your own quiet way, the caretaker of everyone's night. By now, the lamps behind you form a long, glittering trail. You turn briefly to look, It stretches down the street like a golden river, flowing through the heart of the city. Each lamp sways a little in the wind, but they hold their ground. Your lamps, your light. It's a strangely comforting sight. The city feels alive but peaceful, wrapped in its new glow. You imagine that if someone far away looked toward Paris now, they'd see that gentle shimmer and know, somewhere, 1,000 men are walking the streets with fire in their hands. And that thought, absurd as it may be, makes the long hours and aching shoulders worth it. You reach the bridge next, the Pont Marie. The river below is black and silver, moving slowly, reflecting the lanterns on its edges. You light the lamps one by one across the span, pausing midway to watch your own reflection ripple beneath you. The sound of oars drifts up from below. A small boat glides under the arch, carrying barrels of wine. The boatman looks up and raises his cap. "Evening, lamplighter." "Evening, ferryman." You both grin, and the boat slides back into darkness, leaving only its wake shimmering like spilled light. The bridge lamps burn steadily, their glow mirrored in the water like floating coins. Standing there, you realize how much beauty hides in this routine. Every flame you set tonight will ripple through someone's life in ways you'll never see. As the night deepens, the city grows quieter still. The rain has stopped, and the smell of damp stone lingers. You keep walking, your pole tapping the cobbles softly like a metronome. Behind you, the light follows. Ahead of you, darkness waits, patient, endless, but never victorious for long. You are one of hundreds of lamplighters in Paris tonight. Yet somehow, it feels like you're alone in a vast, breathing dream. There's a certain peace in that, being part of the machinery that keeps the world gently turning, even when no one's watching. By the time you reach the end of your route, your oil can is half empty and your hands are smudged with soot. The last lamp stands beside a small bakery closed for the night. You light it carefully, take a slow breath, and step back. The flame steadies itself. The glass hums faintly. You smile. That's the final one. Now the city glows. The work is invisible but complete. And as you walk back through the illuminated streets, your streets, you realize something comforting. Tomorrow, at the same hour, you'll do it all again. And Paris will shine, not because it demands to, but because someone cared enough to give it light. You step off the last stretch of cobblestone and pause to take in the city. Paris at night is a gentle, breathing creature now, wrapped in shadows and amber light. Every lamp you've lit along the streets hums softly in the distance, a chorus of quiet warmth against the cool night air. The sound of your boots seems amplified in the empty streets, echoing faintly off stone walls, following you like a heartbeat, reminding you that even the city's solitude is a companion. As you wander slowly, you notice the night watchers, men whose tasks parallel yours but differ in purpose. There's the constable patrolling his quarter, lantern in hand, eyes alert and careful, yet softened by the glow around him. He tips his hat when he sees you and smiles briefly, acknowledging the shared understanding. Night in Paris is both fragile and beautiful. Then there are the watchmen stationed in the alleys, leaning against walls with cloaks drawn tight, holding long staffs that mirror your poles. Some nod to you, some remain silent. In their presence, you realize that the night is never truly alone. It is watched, tended, and respected. You pause near an iron gate where ivy clings to stone, dew glistening on the leaves. A soft wind carries the scent of roasted chestnuts from a distant cart, mingling with the faint tang of river water. You inhale deeply, feeling the air fill your lungs, bringing with it the lives of countless Parisians who have moved through these streets before you. Historians still argue whether lamplighters were ever truly revered or merely tolerated as a necessary inconvenience. But standing here, you sense the quiet dignity of your role. Even in the shadows, you wield influence. Without your light, the city would fold into darkness, leaving the alleys treacherous and disorienting. A small group of apprentices emerges from a corner, lanterns swinging gently. They watch you with wide eyes, learning the rhythm, the precise angle at which to lift the wick, the subtle art of coaxing flame to life. You slow your pace to let them pass, a private smile tugging at your lips. They carry torches that flicker like nervous stars, unsteady at first, but full of promise. Watching them, you are reminded that this is not just a job, but a lineage, passed hand to hand through decades, centuries, whispers of instruction, and the slow, patient teaching of night after night. You think of the countless men before you who trudged through fog, rain, and snow, ensuring that the lamps burned without fail, their labor unnoticed yet essential. The bells from a distant church toll once, twice, soft and resonant. Each chime drifts lazily through the air, mingling with the soft hiss of your lamp flames. Somewhere nearby, a cat slinks across a fence, eyes glinting in the lamplight. You watch it pause, tail curling like a question mark, before disappearing into an alleyway, confident that the night belongs as much to creatures as to humans. And indeed, the city seems designed for them. The cats, the foxes, the occasional owl, silent spectators of your work. You continue along the Quai de l'Horloge, where the river ripples silently beneath bridges. Your reflection shimmers in the water, broken by each small wave, mingling with the gold of your lamps. Sometimes you pause to admire this mirrored city, imagining that each lamp you've lit casts a small beacon into eternity. A faint smell of damp earth rises from the riverbanks, a reminder of Paris's origins, the city built on marshes and clay. The combination of lamplight, fog, and river scent is intoxicating, a sensory meditation that makes you feel at once grounded and weightless. Historians still argue whether the Lamplighters' routes were ever officially mapped, or if each man relied on memory and instinct, learning the patterns from those who came before. Standing here, you understand the necessity of memory. To forget a lamp could mean plunging an alley into darkness, leaving it vulnerable, silent, and unfamiliar. You trace your path slowly, relishing the mental map that now guides you. The invisible threads connecting lantern to lantern, alley to alley, heart to heart. A faint laughter drifts from a tavern tucked behind a corner. You catch the scent of wine and bread, warm and inviting, and the sound softens your steps, making your journey lighter. Two young men lean from a doorway, playing with a spinning top and daring each other not to let it fall into the gutter. Their eyes follow the lanterns, tracking the rhythm of your steps as if you are part of their game. You smile, tip your hat in silent acknowledgement, and continue. The night deepens. Paris exhales. Shops shutter completely, leaving only shadows and the occasional flicker of candlelight behind curtained windows. The city feels paused yet alive. Every step you take is deliberate, measured, part of a choreography older than most buildings around you. You listen closely to the city's murmurs, the distant cough of someone returning from the theatre, the scrape of a cartwheel, the whisper of the Seine sliding past its banks. Along the Rue des Barres, the lanterns you've lit form small pools of warmth on the wet cobblestones. Each glow seems to pulse faintly, almost sentient, as if acknowledging your passage. You stop to straighten a lamp, adjusting the wick just slightly, coaxing the flame to settle evenly within its glass. A passerby might think it unnecessary, but you know the difference between a timid glow and a steady light. It can change the feel of an entire street, the confidence of those walking it, the safety of all who wander in the hours before midnight. You think about the apprentices again. Perhaps one day, they will remember nights like this, the way you taught them not merely to light lamps, but to respect the night itself. There is humor in it, of course. You catch yourself chuckling quietly, imagining someone centuries from now writing a history that declares the lamplighter an eccentric. Yet the streets of Paris glow precisely because men like you have existed. Repetitively, silently, heroically, a soft gust lifts the mist from the river, and you shiver slightly, wrapping your coat tighter. The smell of burning wick mixes with river mist and distant smoke, creating an aroma uniquely nocturnal. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks once, lonely or protective. It is impossible to tell, but the sound blends into the ambient melody of your journey. Unremarkable, yet essential. The final stretch of your route approaches, the lamps more spaced out now, standing guard along wider streets, their light throwing long shadows across empty courtyards. You feel a weight of satisfaction. Each lamp is a promise kept, each flame a quiet victory. The night is safer, warmer, brighter, not in grand gestures, but in intimate, steady illumination. As you light the last few lamps, you imagine a visitor walking through the city unseen, following your trail of golden light. Perhaps they will never know who tended these flames, who risked dew, rain, and aching limbs to guide them safely. But that is the beauty of it. The work exists without applause. You are part of Paris's pulse, a quiet, invisible heartbeat within the living city. Somewhere above, the moon peeks through clouds, casting silver shadows over the glowing streets. You pause to admire the scene. Paris at night is no longer a collection of buildings, lamps, and streets. It is a breathing, living painting, and you are both the brush and the hand that guides it. You let the moment linger. The city is calm, the lamps are steady. The night watchers, men and women alike, are in their places. And you, lamplighter, are at the center of it, walking a path that is both ordinary and extraordinary, silent yet essential. The first hints of dawn are still hours away, but the city already feels like it has been held in light. Every shadow tamed, every alleyway watched, every soul gently guided home. You take a slow breath, savor the warmth, and continue your steps. Steady, patient, infinite. You step carefully onto the narrow street of the Marais, the cobblestones slick from an earlier drizzle. Each lamp you pass flickers gently in the soft night breeze, swaying like tiny sentinels. By now, you know their patterns, the slight inconsistencies in their glass, the way a draft from a nearby alley makes one flame lean slightly. The city is alive with these small quirks, and you feel as though you are walking through a living organism. Each lamp a heartbeat, each flicker a breath. It is here, in these quieter stretches of the city, that the true magic of your role becomes apparent. The streets are nearly empty, save for the occasional wanderer returning from the theatre, a lone clerk hurrying home, or a cat prowling for scraps beneath the faint glow. Your footsteps echo softly, harmonizing with the hiss of the wicks as you coax each flame awake. It is a rhythm now, second nature, yet every street, every lamp, every shadow carries its own subtle variations, and you take note, feeling a profound connection to the city's nocturnal pulse. Behind you, the trail of light stretches long, a golden ribbon through the darkened Marais. The glow seems to attract attention, even when no one is supposed to be watching. A pair of shutters creak open slightly, and a sleepy voice whispers, "Merci, monsieur." You nod with a private smile. Gratitude in the night is often fleeting, but it is real. Historians still argue whether Lamplighters were considered mere labourers or unsung custodians of urban life. But standing here, you feel the weight of that responsibility pressing gently on your shoulders. A responsibility that is at once invisible and indispensable. You pause to inspect a lamp at the corner of Rue Vieille du Temple, noticing a slight chip in its glass. It has been there for weeks, but tonight the light seems to dance differently through it, scattering into tiny prisms across the cobbles. You adjust the wick, watching the flame settle. Even these imperfections have their own charm, as though the city itself has left fingerprints for those who notice. A stray cat slinks past, tail high, pausing to sniff the warm glow before disappearing into the shadows. You cannot help but laugh softly. The city's creatures, human and otherwise, seem to understand the delicate balance you maintain. Nearby, a baker's window glows faintly. The smell of warm bread drifts out, mingling with the scent of the lamp oil and wet stone. You imagine the baker kneeling by his ovens in the dark, shaping dough as you light the lamps outside, unaware of the invisible partnership forming across the street. Perhaps the night itself is a collaboration, a silent choreography in which every element, fire, stone, water, scent, moves together to create a seamless experience for those awake and paying attention. You move forward, lifting the long iron pole, coaxing flame after flame. Each lamp is a puzzle, slightly different from the last. Some stubbornly resist, requiring a gentle nudge, a careful tilt of the wick. Others ignite eagerly, as though relieved to be acknowledged after hours of waiting in darkness. You smile at the thought, imagining that lamps have personalities, and that tonight this street's lamps are cooperative, almost grateful for your guidance. As you reach the Place des Vosges, the wide-open square is dimly lit, the lamps standing at even intervals like watchful guardians. You stop for a moment, listening to the night. The square is hushed but not silent. Somewhere, a violin whispers through an open window, the notes drifting lazily. A carriage rattles softly across the stones, its wheels leaving wet imprints that glint in the lamp glow. You feel a deep sense of belonging here, an almost meditative serenity. The older Lamplighters told stories of this square, speaking in low, reverent tones. Some claimed that lamps here were more temperamental than elsewhere, susceptible to unseen drafts or nocturnal spirits. You chuckle quietly at the memory, imagining invisible beings tugging at flames, mischievous and playful. A gentle wind flutters, but the lamps remain steady, obedient to your touch. You are both caretaker and mediator, negotiating between fire and air, darkness and safety. Nearby, a group of apprentices are learning, huddled under a tree, their own poles resting against the trunk. They watch as you light each lamp, mimicking your movements with quiet awe. You remember when you were like them, unsure, fumbling, afraid of missing a flame. There is humor in their nervous energy, yet a solemnity too, a recognition that this is more than a chore. It is a duty, a nightly covenant with the city. You bend to light a particularly low lamp near an iron fence. The wick is old, soaked unevenly, and for a moment, it refuses to catch. You whisper gently, as if coaxing a shy animal, and finally the flame leaps obediently into life. There is satisfaction in such small victories, a reminder that patience and care are often more powerful than force. You straighten and glance at the shadows cast across the square. They twist and stretch, but the golden halos from the lamps anchor the night, providing clarity in the darkness. A passerby pauses to watch, a lantern in hand, perhaps a neighbor, perhaps a visitor who has not yet realized how much work goes into each soft glow. They smile faintly, nod, and continue, leaving you alone once again with the rhythm of your steps and the gentle flicker of fire. Historians still argue whether Lamplighters were fully appreciated in their own time, but standing here, it is clear that the city itself breathes easier for your efforts, and that is reward enough. As you move toward the edges of the square, the scent of damp leaves and night-blooming flowers mingles with the soft aroma of burning oil. A breeze carries faint laughter from a tavern around the corner, a reminder that the city lives in multiple layers, some awake, some asleep, some hidden behind closed shutters, yet all touched by the soft pulse of light you leave behind. You feel a quiet pride, tempered with humor, at the absurdity of your labor. Men walking in the dark, balancing poles, sparking tiny flames in glass boxes, and calling it work. But it is sacred in its own way, meditative, slow, and profoundly connected to the life of the city. By the time you finish this stretch, your coat is damp with mist, your hands smeared with oil, and yet there is a serenity in your movements. Every lamp has been tended, every flame burns steady, the shadows have been softened, the darkness held at bay, and Paris is a little safer, a little warmer, a little more magical. You take a slow breath, letting the cool air fill your lungs, listening to the city's soft nocturnal symphony, feeling the heartbeat of streets illuminated not by grandeur, but by patient, human care. You glance behind you. The trail of golden light stretches through alleys, across squares and along bridges, a quiet, glowing testament to the invisible work that makes the city pulse at night. Somewhere a cat slinks along the fence, a violin hums softly through a window, and the Seine reflects your lamps as if the river itself appreciates the effort. The night is alive. It has rhythm. It has warmth. And for tonight, you have been its humble conductor, guiding the flames, observing the city, and leaving behind a trail of quiet wonder for those who dare to notice. The air grows colder as you leave the Place des Vosges behind, your boots splashing lightly in the thin puddles on the cobblestones. Each lamp you pass is a beacon in the darkness, the small circles of light reflecting off wet stone like golden mirrors. You slow your steps, savoring the quiet intimacy of the streets at this hour. The city seems to hold its breath for a moment, allowing you to glide through, almost suspended in time. A faint sound catches your attention, the soft creak of a shutter, followed by whispered words. Curious, you approach cautiously and find a window slightly ajar, a candle flickering inside. An old woman leans on the sill, her voice hushed but rhythmic, reciting what seems like a fragment of poetry or prayer. Blessed be the light, that it guides the lost and warms the weary. Her words drift through the night, mingling with the gentle hiss of your lamp flames. You pause, letting the cadence sink in. For a moment, the city feels less like a collection of buildings and more like a living story. Each inhabitant a character, each lamp a punctuation mark in an unfolding tale. You continue along Rue Saint-Antoine, the mist curling around your ankles, wrapping the street in a soft grey blanket. The lamps here are slightly higher, perched on wrought iron brackets, and their flames sway delicately, teasing the fog with shadows that stretch like dancers. Historians still argue whether lamplighters were storytellers as well as custodians, but standing here, it is impossible not to feel the narrative in every flame. Each lamp seems to hold memory, the laughter of children playing hide and seek, the hurried footsteps of late-night merchants, the whispered secrets of lovers meeting in alleyways. A group of apprentices scurry past, carrying tiny lanterns of their own. They are nervous, whispering to one another about angles and flares, afraid of missing a single flicker. You watch with quiet amusement, remembering your own first nights when each flame seemed alive, unpredictable, almost mischievous. One apprentice tilts his lantern too far, and the wick sputters, casting a tiny shower of sparks onto the wet stone. You suppress a laugh, motioning him to steady it. He nods sheepishly, cheeks flushed, but the lamp settles obediently. Even flames, it seems, demand patience, attention, and a gentle hand. The scent of wet stone and smoke is accompanied now by a hint of roasted chestnuts from a cart around the corner. A young boy sits cross-legged on the curb, cracking nuts with deft fingers, giggling at his own clumsiness as a stray nut rolls into the gutter. The vendor, A rotund man with a grease-stained apron calls to him softly, shaking his head with a smile. You inhale, letting the aroma mingle with the warm glow of the lamps. Paris at night is not merely a city. It is a tapestry of sensory threads, each strand carrying stories of labor, play, hunger, and laughter. Your path takes you past the river, where the Seine murmurs against its banks. The reflection of lanterns ripples across the water, fracturing the light into 1,000 golden slivers. You pause, mesmerized. The city's mirrored surface seems alive, whispering secrets of centuries past. Perhaps this is what the old Lamplighters meant when they spoke of guiding not just the present, but the memory of the night itself, somewhere upstream. A boat drifts silently, its occupant unseen, yet aware of the luminous trail your lamps leave behind. You smile faintly. The interplay between water, flame, and stone feels almost poetic, as if the city has choreographed this moment just for those willing to notice. As you continue, you notice a faint metallic clink from an alleyway. Curiosity leads you there, and you find a lamplighter from another district crouched beside a lamp, adjusting a wick with precise movements. He looks up, nods, and continues without a word. There is camaraderie in this silence, a shared understanding that transcends conversation. Each flame is vital, each street a responsibility, each night a living story to be curated. You feel a strange sense of humility, realizing that while the city sleeps, your labor and that of countless others like you is the unseen framework that makes Paris navigable, safe, and magical. The fog thickens slightly, curling around the legs of street posts, around the arches of doorways. You step carefully, aware of each sound, the soft splash of water from gutters, the whisper of wind through narrow alleys, the distant hum of a tavern still open for late revelers. Even the tiniest noises seem amplified in the quiet night, woven into a tapestry that is part music, part story, part meditation. Your breath mingles with the mist, warm against the cool air, and you feel the night wrap around you, a companion and confessor. You reach a small square where a few lamps are clustered together, illuminating a modest fountain. Water trickles gently into the basin, catching the light in tiny flickers. A young woman bends to fill a bucket, humming softly, her voice mingling with the distant whistle of a river breeze. She pauses, glances up, and nods at the steady glow of your lanterns. In her eyes, you glimpse a recognition. The lamps are not just lights, but anchors, guardians of the city's rhythm, and you are among the few who tend them with care and reverence. Nearby, a stray cat lounges atop the fountain's edge, tail flicking lazily. You pause to admire it, noting the way its eyes catch the lantern's glow, reflecting tiny points of light like stars. It seems unafraid, familiar with your presence, a silent witness to the labor, patience, and ritual embedded in each step you take. You feel an almost meditative calm, realizing that the night is not empty but full of observers, hidden, soft, alive. Historians still argue whether the Lamplighters' work influenced the social dynamics of Paris. Some claim that the glow of the lamps encouraged safe passage for night travelers, while others suggest the lights merely illuminated the inevitable human mischief. Perhaps both are true. What matters now is the quiet satisfaction of seeing each flame steady, each shadow softened, each street made navigable by the subtle care of hands like yours. As you wind through the square, the distant bells of Notre Dame toll gently, echoing through the alleys and across the rooftops. Each chime resonates in your chest, a gentle reminder that time moves even as the city sleeps. Your lamps flicker slightly in response to the breeze, but never falter. You are the custodian of this nocturnal serenity, the invisible guide ensuring that the night is both safe and enchanting. The final stretch of this section takes you past a series of side streets where lamps cluster closer, their flames almost conversational, murmuring to each other across narrow gaps. You pause at one lamp that has always been temperamental, coaxing it with practiced hands. It springs to life with a soft hiss, and you allow yourself a quiet chuckle. Perhaps the lamp enjoys the drama, the attention, the delicate interplay of oil, wick, and air. In this city, even inanimate objects seem to carry personality and expectation. And so, you continue. Each lamp you tend is a small victory, a beacon against the encroaching night. Every step, every flicker, every subtle adjustment is a note in the quiet nocturnal symphony of Paris, a meditation in motion, a testament to patience, humor, and human care. Somewhere beyond the square, the Seine whispers, the fog curls, the city breathes, and you, lamplighter, walk its golden thread, aware that each flame is a story, each shadow a secret, each night a living canvas of light and life. You move onward, following the familiar rhythm of your nightly walk, the click of your boots on the wet cobblestones, a soft counterpoint to the hiss and murmur of the lamps. Each street corner you approach carries its own personality, its own temperament. Some corners are quiet, almost reverent, while others hum with the echo of distant taverns, the occasional rattle of a carriage, or the faint laughter of a late-night vendor tallying coins. These corners, you realize, are the city's punctuation, places where the narrative of Paris shifts subtly with every flicker of flame. Here, the lamps are positioned in tight clusters, creating pools of light that overlap and converse with each other. You kneel slightly to inspect a particularly tricky lamp tucked into the curve of a building, its glass fogged and soot-stained. The wick is hesitant tonight, almost stubborn. You tilt it gently, adjusting the flame with a patient hand. As it catches, a faint golden glow spills onto the street, revealing details you hadn't noticed before. The texture of old shutters, the moss growing between stones, a tiny engraving on a lamppost that has likely gone unnoticed for decades. These small discoveries are the hidden rewards of your work, the city unfolding layer by layer, as if sharing secrets with someone trustworthy. A stray dog ambles across the square, sniffing at shadows, tail wagging slowly. It pauses beside a lamp, staring at the flame as though it too appreciates the ritual. You smile faintly. Animals in Paris have an uncanny sense of the city's rhythms, knowing when a flame is tending to its duty, when it is steady, and when it is playful. Historians still argue whether lamplighters influence the nocturnal movement of animals in the city, or if it is merely coincidence. But your own observations suggest an unspoken accord between light, life, and creaturely instincts. The scent of the city shifts here, merging smoke from distant hearths with the damp tang of the river and the faint sweetness of night-blooming flowers pressed against courtyard walls. You breathe deeply, letting the mixture settle, and feel the meditative quality of your work deepen. Lighting lamps is not simply a task. It is a ritual, a nightly devotion that requires attentiveness, patience, and a kind of reverent humor. There is amusement in knowing that countless individuals sleep blissfully, unaware of the invisible choreography guiding their paths through the night. A young apprentice follows at a careful distance, mimicking your movements with quiet concentration. His hands are slightly unsteady, his lantern tilting now and then, but his dedication is earnest. You chuckle softly, remembering your own early nights, fumbling and muttering curses under your breath at uncooperative wicks. You allow him a small nod of encouragement, an invisible handshake of mentorship. Even the most ordinary task becomes extraordinary when performed with intention, patience, and a sense of connection to something larger than oneself. You approach a corner where 3 streets converge, and here the light has a curious challenge. The lamp's positions cast overlapping shadows that obscure certain edges while emphasizing others. You kneel to inspect a lamp tucked into the corner of a building, its wick frazzled from the damp air. Carefully, you adjust it, muttering softly to the flame as though coaxing a shy child into attention. As it bursts to life, golden radiance floods the intersection, revealing the old markings on the stones, faded lines from centuries-old cots, the initials of past lamplighters, perhaps even a forgotten inscription from a guild long gone. You let yourself imagine the history embedded here, each flicker of flame resurrecting fragments of stories long since whispered into the night. Nearby, the distant aroma of roasted chestnuts drifts through the alleys, mingling with the subtle scent of oil and the damp earth of hidden courtyards. A baker's apprentice emerges briefly, lifting a small tray of nuts into the street, glancing with quiet gratitude at your work. There is an invisible thread connecting you, the lamplighter and the vendor, each attending to their nocturnal duties, each unaware yet reliant on the other for a sense of rhythm and continuity. This reciprocity, you realize, is the heartbeat of the city, a network of small acts creating coherence and comfort for all who traverse it. A faint giggle reaches your ears, echoing from a narrow alley. 2 children play, darting from shadow to shadow, using the pools of lamplight as markers for imaginary worlds. One trips slightly, sending a flicker of light catching on a puddle that reflects their laughter back into the night. You pause, appreciating the scene. Life in miniature, choreographed by shadows and lamps, the city's own improvisational theatre. Humour, it seems, is embedded in the rhythm of the streets, the unpredictable spark of human energy mingling with your own steady, deliberate work. You move along Rue de Rivoli, noting the subtle differences in the lamps along this stretch. Some are taller, casting a broad halo across the street, while others cling to walls like cautious sentinels. Each has its quirks, a flame that dances unpredictably, a wick that needs extra coaxing, a lamp that leans ever so slightly as though testing your patience. There is satisfaction in adjusting these imperfections, in restoring balance without ever disturbing the natural rhythm of the city. Historians still debate whether lamplighters were appreciated in their time beyond mere acknowledgement from neighbours and city officials. Some argue that the work was mundane and undervalued, while others suggest a deep cultural significance, a nocturnal stewardship that shaped social interactions and even crime patterns. Walking these streets, you sense both arguments hold merit. The work is humdrum, yes, but it is also vital, ceremonial in a quiet, understated way, and filled with humour if one chooses to notice. As the night deepens, a gentle mist begins to curl across the street corners. Each lamp's glow refracts softly through the haze, turning ordinary stone and iron into a dreamlike landscape. You pause at a particularly foggy intersection, adjusting a lamp so that its light penetrates the mist like a beacon. The apprentices follow your lead, copying your motions, and for a moment, you are a silent conductor orchestrating a symphony of light, shadow, and movement. You approach a small courtyard tucked between tall buildings. The lamps here are fewer, but their placement is delicate, each flame a calculated guardian for the doorways and pathways they illuminate. A solitary cat slinks along the edge of the courtyard, tail flicking, pausing to sniff at the warm glow. You chuckle. Even the smallest of creatures seem to respect the ritual, understanding the careful attention required to coax flame from wick. A thin drizzle begins, making the cobblestones slick and the air carry the scent of rain mixed with oil. You adjust a stubborn lamp, muttering softly about the absurdity of damp nights and whimsical flames. Humour, after all, is essential. It turns a repetitive task into something bearable, even joyful. The apprentices watch and laugh quietly, one mumbling, "Monsieur, do the lamps always require speeches before they obey?" You smile inwardly, knowing full well that humour, like patience, is part of the craft. By the time you finish the courtyard, the streets have settled into a serene rhythm. The lamps you've tended cast long, reassuring shadows, guiding any late wanderers safely through the maze of alleys. The mist curls softly, the city hums quietly, and you feel the meditative satisfaction of a job well done. These small, repetitive actions, these tiny moments of care, are what make the nocturnal Paris alive, what make the city breathe and shimmer, unseen but deeply felt. The final streets of your nightly circuit stretch ahead like a quiet ribbon through the sleeping city. The mist has thinned, leaving a delicate veil that softens the harsh angles of stone and iron. Each lamp you pass glimmers with a steady patience, as if acknowledging your presence, your quiet vigilance. The city exhales slowly, the subtle sigh of cobblestones, shutters, and rooftops, acknowledging the steady ritual that has guided the night. You walk with measured steps, feeling the rhythm of your own heartbeat blend with that of Paris itself. A gentle breeze stirs, carrying scents both familiar and unexpected, the faint smoke of distant hearths, the subtle aroma of wet earth, a lingering trace of roasted chestnuts from a long-past street corner. Somewhere behind you, a dog curls in the shadow of a doorway, tail brushing lightly against the stone. Its breathing is deep, steady and unbothered, as if it too understands the quiet magic of the night's orchestration. At the Place de la Concorde, the broad openness of the square feels almost sacred in contrast to the tight alleys you have traversed. Here, a few tall lamps rise like sentinels, their flames steady against the night sky. You pause to inspect one that has been temperamental in past nights. The wick leans, the glass smudged and fogged with condensation. With practiced hands, you tilt it, coaxing the flame to life. A small sputter, a hesitant flicker, and then it steadies, glowing confidently. You step back and admire the soft radiance spilling across the square, reflections dancing in tiny puddles from earlier rain. There is a fleeting sense of triumph, quiet but deeply satisfying. Nearby, a group of apprentices gathers, their small lanterns clustered like fireflies. You watch them adjust wicks, tilt flames, and murmur encouragement to one another. There is something profoundly human about this scene. The transmission of knowledge, the mentorship wrapped in gentle humour, the recognition that each lamp you tend is not just illumination, but care, connection, and shared responsibility. Historians still debate the social impact of lamplighters. Some argue they were invisible labourers, their work appreciated only in hindsight. Others insist their presence shaped Parisian nights, influencing commerce, safety, and even culture. Standing here, you feel both arguments resonate simultaneously. Every lamp you light, every careful adjustment, every deliberate pause shapes the nocturnal life of the city, giving rhythm, warmth, and subtle magic to spaces that would otherwise be dark and intimidating. You move toward the final lamp of your route, a modest one tucked into a quiet corner near the riverbank. The Seine reflects the faint glow of moonlight mingled with the soft flames, the water whispering stories you cannot fully grasp but sense nonetheless. Kneeling, you adjust the wick with meticulous care. The flame rises, steady and warm, casting a gentle light across the nearby stone. The night feels complete, balanced, and whole. You exhale slowly, letting the weight of hours of quiet work settle into a calm satisfaction that words can hardly capture. A cat weaves silently between your legs, brushing against your cloak, a tiny companion in this final moment. You smile faintly, thinking how these small lives, human and otherwise, are intertwined with the Lamplighters' rhythm. There is no ceremony, no grand applause, only the quiet acknowledgement of presence, the satisfaction of duty performed well, the subtle humour in knowing that even the smallest lamp holds personality and expectation. The bells of distant churches toll softly, echoing across the rooftops and empty streets. You pause to listen, the deep resonance wrapping around you, grounding you, a reminder that even as the city sleeps, time flows steadily. Each chime seems to mark not just the hour, but the completion of your nocturnal journey, a punctuation to a story told in light and shadow, patience and observation. At last, the route is complete. Each lamp glows warmly, each street is guided, and the night feels alive, cared for, and attentive. You take a final step, allowing yourself a quiet reflection on the rhythm, humour, and subtle magic of the task you perform. Every flame, every shadow, every gentle moment of adjustment has contributed to the living heartbeat of Paris. You feel the weight of centuries of lamplighters who have walked these streets, passing the torch, quite literally, from hand to hand. You step back and let the city settle around you, the last hints of mist curling softly against cobblestones. The lamps flicker gently, steady now, bathing the streets in a warm, reassuring glow. Every shadow seems softer, every stone calmer, and the Seine whispers quietly along its banks. You feel the city breathe, a subtle, slow exhalation, as though it too is acknowledging the completion of your work. The night air is cool, yet comforting, carrying scents of earth, smoke, and faint traces of roasted chestnuts that linger from earlier hours. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the rhythm of your footsteps, the steady flicker of lamps, and the soft murmurs of nocturnal life fill you completely. There is no rush here, only the gentle cadence of time, the quiet satisfaction of duty fulfilled, and the faint humour in knowing that each lamp you light, each careful adjustment, is part of a story bigger than yourself. As you walk toward the quietest corner of the city, the distant sounds fade, the splashing of the Seine, the hum of a solitary cart, the whisper of wind through narrow alleys. These are the gentle notes of Paris at rest, a lullaby of light and shadow that you helped orchestrate. Every flame seems to whisper, a soft thank you to the observer, the caretaker, the quiet participant in the nocturnal dance. You inhale deeply, letting the cool night air fill your lungs, and exhale slowly, feeling the weight of the day melt into the calm of evening. The city is alive, but it is a quiet, tender life, a tapestry of stories, shadows, and tiny acts of care. You have walked through it, tended it, and become a part of its pulse, even if only for a single night. Now, dim your thoughts as gently as the lamps you've lit. Allow the images of flickering flames, quiet streets, playful shadows, and watchful cats to drift slowly behind your eyelids. Let Paris rest, and let yourself drift alongside it, wrapped in the soft warmth of lamps, stories, and midnight streets. Sleep is near, and it is patient, inviting, and deeply deserved. Sweet dreams.